It's no secret that the Rodecaster Pro is an awesome audio tool, but it has so many features that it can sometimes feel overwhelming. Today I'm going to share my top 5 Rodecaster Pro tips to help you down the road faster of becoming a pro with the Rodecaster Pro. And of course I am recording this video directly into the Rodecaster Pro with the PodMic and the WS2 windscreen, the classic combo, and the Rode PSA1, all my favorite things. The first tip to share is really a reminder that the Rodecaster Pro is not just for podcast and recording audio, but it is an incredible tool for live streams, video calls, and basically anything where you need high quality audio. I always keep my Rodecaster connected to my computer via USB, and I use it in anything that requires audio. So when I'm teaching my Zoom classes, the Rodecaster pops up as a source in Zoom. Actually, let me show you. This basic process should work the same in any of your streaming software. So right here in the Zoom audio settings, you can see that the Rodecaster Pro pops up both as a speaker and as a microphone. I didn't have to do anything. It's entirely plug and play. And the same thing is true over here on Ecamm Live, where the Rodecaster just pops up as an audio device. It will do the same thing in FaceTime, in OBS, in StreamYard, in YouTube Studio, directly through your browser. Basically anything that requires an audio input, you can select the Rodecaster. And if you have a Rodecaster, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be using it all the time for all of your audio, even beyond recording podcasts and stuff like that. And you can even take it one step further than that. For example, with the iPad Pro, you can connect the USB-C from the Rodecaster into your iPad and use it as a source there. I did an entire video all about that where I recorded a song into GarageBand through the Rodecaster Pro. But also, I really want to thank both Nimmin and Diana Gladney for explaining to me how to use the Rodecaster with an iPhone, which is not something I knew that you could do. Basically, you just need an actual TRRS cable, connect it to the smartphone channel on your Rodecaster, connect it to the lightning adapter on your iPhone, and then all the audio from the Rodecaster will go into your iPhone. So you can even use Rodecaster audio when you're doing any kind of audio work on your iPhone. That's definitely a step up and a game changer. So thanks to Dee and Diana indeed, for sharing that with me. Now I won't want to miss this next tip by subtracting it from the list, and that is mix minus, which is one of the most useful things you can do with the Rodecaster. And there are actually 2 different ways to approach using mix minus. And essentially what that is, if you're not entirely sure, is you have audio running into the Rodecaster, but you don't want it to end up on your final recording, or you don't want it to be output to your stream, your Zoom call, whatever else that you're using the Rodecaster with, like we just talked about. And it might sound strange at first that you would want audio coming into the Rodecaster but not going out of the Rodecaster, but there are a lot of reasons why it's really helpful. I use it almost every single day with my Zoom classes, where I want to be able to hear it when people ask questions or make comments, but I don't want it to go back out into the Zoom thing because then they hear themselves and it becomes this crazy echo situation. I also like to use this a lot when I'm doing remote podcast interviews and the person is recording high quality audio on their end, because I'm not going to record that same quality audio here, but I still need to hear them to be able to talk to them, so I use a mix minus feature there. And there are actually 2. So let's start with USB mix minus. And USB mix minus is in the advanced audio options. You can click advanced, go to audio, go to processing, and right there you've got USB mix minus turned on, and that will basically remove this USB channel from your finished recording. And I do usually have USB mix minus turned on pretty much all the time, but sometimes I need to remind myself that it's on if I need to turn it off and I don't want to forget that it's on. But there is one way around that, which is another way of handling mix minus, and that involves the mute and the solo buttons on the bottom of each channel. And so right now for this video, I'm using channel 3 on the Rodecaster Pro just because that's the blue channel. I always use channel 3. But if I wanted to use mix minus, I can press the solo button on my channel, and that's going to pull just my audio out in the recording. So I can actually do this while I'm recording for this video, and it's not going to have a negative effect, or at least it shouldn't. If the audio suddenly changed here, that would mean something went wrong. And then on another channel, like say for example, I am bringing in a phone call and I want to include that person as well, I would need to solo them, because when the green button is on, only that channel is going to make it through to the final mix. So any channels that have the green button on will make it through. So in this case, no matter what the other channels are doing, nothing is going to come through except for channel 3 and the smartphone channel. But if I don't want the smartphone audio to actually make it to the recording, then I also mute it. And now this is basically mixed minus from here. This is the only thing going to the recording. This I can still hear through my headphones, but it's not going to make it into the output. And the same thing then if I wanted to add in sound effects that everybody could hear, I can add that here. If I want to add in the computer and I don't want to turn on USB mix minus, I can do the same thing there. I use this a lot, especially when recording remote podcasts with just one other person, like when Peter Lindgren and I do our podcast. That's pretty much how I'm doing his audio, because he has a Rodecaster on his end all the way over in Sweden. He's going to get better sound recording there in his studio than I'm going to get through FaceTime over here. And so I use that version of Mix Minus so I can hear him, we can talk, and then he just sends me the high quality audio file. Did a whole video all about that too. Now this can get out of hand pretty quickly, because what you could find is that you want multiple channels to be included, but then multiple channels to be excluded but still heard. And eventually you end up with like almost all the channels except for one or two being either soloed or muted or both. And that brings me to the next point, or the next question, which is when to use multitrack. The multitrack feature on the Rodecaster Pro is pretty amazing, and I'm sorry to say it took me so long to fully embrace it. But you access it through the advanced menu again, you click on audio, and then you go to multitrack. Right now for me, the SD card option is not there because I'm actually recording to the SD card, but you can also do USB multitrack output. You can have your multitrack ignore any processing, which would mean if you're streaming or whatever, the processing will be heard there, but it's not going to make it to your finished recordings. The times when I use multitrack the most are when I have basically more than one track that I would want to mute and solo. So if it's like just me and one other person, I like to just do it that way because it keeps things simpler. I'm just importing one stereo file to my computer. As soon as you dive into multitrack, you're importing all of the tracks, even if you're not using them. It just takes a lot longer, especially if you've recorded for a while, like an hour or more, which is not uncommon for podcasts. And it's just an easier workflow to work with one simple file. So that's what I try to stick with as much as I can. But multitrack can be super helpful if you have more people, more inputs, and you just want to make sure you have the ability to go back and fix everything later. It's also great if you do want to keep a backup. So sometimes if I'm doing an interview for a podcast or something, even if they are recording high quality audio on their end, I might just use multitrack over here, so that way I can have their track as a backup audio source. Even if it doesn't sound perfect, at least I know that if something goes wrong on their end and they can't send me the file, or after the interview they just decide to ghost me because they don't like me, I still have their audio and I can still use it. But I really wanted to include this point because I get a lot of messages that are questions about multitrack, and it seems like a lot of people feel like they need to make a decision about their workflow with the Rodecaster. Do I use multitrack? Do I not use multitrack? Make the decision and then stick with it. And I really want to remind you that you're not married to that decision. You can change it at any time, and you should always use whatever's best for what you need at the given moment. It's not uncommon for me personally to switch between multitrack and the stereo file mode several times within the same day, depending on what I'm working on. So just know what tools you have in your toolbox and then use them when it's going to best help you accomplish whatever it is that you're trying to do. Speaking of accomplishing things, I don't know if you know this, but I found my old iPod and it was broken, but it finally started working again. It just needed some time to heal up in an iPodcast. iPodcast. I do podcasts, actually. I have 3 podcasts. You could check them out in the links below. So let's move on to tip number 4, which can really affect your audio, and that is the onboard effects in the Rodecaster Pro. I think it can be really tempting when you first get your Rodecaster to go into your audio processing, turn everything on, and then just think that you need all these things all the time, but I really don't recommend that. So if I turn on the high pass filter, turn on the compressor, turn on the noise gate, turn on the aural exciter and the big bottom, and turn on the de-esser, it's really going to have an effect on my sound. And the biggest thing with the effects is to really keep them subtle. So let's go a little crazy right now. I'm gonna go over here and go into the high pass filter, and if I just crank that all the way up because I feel like I want to use that, and I want to turn on the compressor and go a little crazy with it and make things a little louder, and then I want to turn on the noise gate, and then I'm going to turn on the de-esser, get rid of all those S's, and then I'm going to turn on the big bottom to add some bass in my voice, but I'm also going to turn on the RL exciter to really just sort of give me that nice, like, crazy radio tone. Is that everything? Oh, bringing the big bottom more into the mix. And now, obviously, I'm taking this to the extreme to make a point. I don't think anybody would just do that, but I think it can be very tempting when you get your Rodecaster to kind of go in and go a little crazy. This is a highly processed audio. This right now is just the PodMic with basically a little bit of the big bottom processing and a little bit of a high pass filter. But a lot of times I will just turn off all the effects altogether and let the natural sound come through. And if I want to edit it, I can do that in Adobe Audition or something like that. So I'm not saying don't use the onboard effects. They can be incredibly helpful. Just, it's like cooking. You don't want to just dump like all the salt and all the seasoning into your dish. You want to just be subtle with it so that way it brings out the flavor and it doesn't overwhelm the flavor. That was a great analogy. And my last tip has to do with the protection of your Rodecaster Pro. I strongly recommend that you always use some kind of cover, case, or dust cover when you're not using it, just to keep it in perfect working order. For the past year or so, I've been using this cover from decksaver.com. This is not sponsored. They did originally send me this when they started making it. They sent it to me for free, but since then I've purchased others as gifts for people, so it's free, but I've also bought some. And when you put it on your Rodecaster, it just keeps all the buttons from getting moved, it keeps all dirt and dust from getting in there, and it just keeps the whole unit protected, and I love that, and it's a really snug, really good fit. I've gotten into the pretty good habit of putting this on my Rodecaster when I'm done using it every day and taking it off in the morning every day, and it really helps. I live in the desert and we have two very sheddy dogs. If you do any kind of audio stuff, you know that once dirt gets into the knobs and into the sliders, it can really have a negative effect on your overall sound quality. And of course, what would a video like this be without a bonus tip and or trick? And I don't want to phone it in, so let's talk about headphones with the Rodecaster Pro. And this really is more of just a tip and a bit of general guidance. The headphone preamps on the Rodecaster Pro, I'm sorry to say, just aren't that great. It is amazing that there are 5 headphone outputs built into it, and everybody can listen to what's being recorded, and I love that, and the individual volume knobs are great, but it's not the quietest preamp. And what that means is oftentimes when you're listening with headphones, you're going to hear a little bit of hiss and a little bit of noise that's not actually going to be on the final recording. And I bring this up because I also get a lot of messages from people asking, they're like almost going insane trying to get rid of this hiss, and they can't find the source of it. And it turns out it's not actually even affecting their recordings or their streams or the output. It's just the headphone preamps. So all in all, it's not the end of the world, because whatever you're hearing in your headphones, the final recording or the final output is actually going to be higher quality. So that's kind of a good thing. It's a good idea. Do some test recordings, play those back, on your computer or something, and listen to what it actually sounds like. Don't rely on the headphone preamp for 100% accurate reproduction of your sound quality. And now that I've said that, the bonus tip sort of became a negative, and I don't want the negative to outweigh the positives of the other tips that I gave. So let's end this video on a really positive note. The Rodecaster Pro, I've said this time and again, is one of the best tools I've ever invested in. It's not unusual for me to get comments where people are asking for cheaper alternatives to the Rodecaster with all the same functionality, which just doesn't exist, or they just say the price is too high at about $600 usually. And I really do want to invite anyone who feels that way to price out individually items that will do all of the functionality of the Rodecaster, and then factor in how you have to daisy chain them all together to create your audio setup that is accomplished in this one compact unit. And I say that because I've done that many times. And even more than that, I'm just such a fan of the Rodecaster Pro community, because the people who are excited about this and using this, it's just a really exciting group to be a part of, and everybody's making stuff, and that's just really exciting. And I get psyched when something helps people make stuff. And so here is a playlist all full of videos to help you master the Rodecaster Pro. There's a lot of sound advice for your sound device up in there.